The night was thick with tension. In the heart of Florence, a city known for its vibrant culture and ruthless politics, a meeting was about to take place that would change the course of history. Cosimo de Medici, the most powerful man in Florence, was about to take a gamble that could either secure the city's future or plunge it into chaos. Cosimo, a middle-aged man with a sallow complexion and a prominent nose, stood at the window of his palazzo, his eyes scanning the dark streets below. He had just returned from exile 2 years ago, and since then, he had been working tirelessly to reassert his control over the city. But the threat from Milan loomed large. Filippo Maria Visconti, the Duke of Milan, was constantly seeking to expand his territory, and the exiled Albizzi family was urging him to invade Florence and reinstall them as rulers. Cosimo knew he needed a powerful ally to counter this threat. That's why he had invited Francesco Sforza, a 34-year-old military leader known for his ferocity and cunning, to Florence. Sforza was the bastard son of a farmer from the Romagna, but he had risen to become one of the most respected condottieri in Italy. He was a man of commanding presence, with broad, coarse features and a brusque manner, but beneath his tough exterior lay a boyish charm that few could resist. As the clock struck midnight, a lone figure emerged from the shadows and approached the palazzo. It was Sforza, flanked by a few of his loyal mercenaries. Cosimo watched as Sforza was escorted into the grand hall, where a lavish banquet had been prepared. The air was thick with anticipation. Sforza entered the hall, his eyes scanning the room. He was used to the opulence of courts, but Florence was different. The city was a hotbed of culture and politics, and every move he made would be scrutinized. Cosimo greeted him with a warm smile, extending his hand. "Welcome, Francesco," Cosimo said, his voice calm and measured. "I hope you find our city to your liking." Sforza nodded, his expression guarded. "Your invitation was unexpected, but I am always willing to explore new opportunities." The banquet began, and as the wine flowed, Cosimo and Sforza engaged in polite conversation. But beneath the surface, a complex game of diplomacy was being played. Cosimo knew that inviting Sforza to Florence was a risky move. Sforza had strong ties to Milan, and even had ambitions to marry the Duke of Milan's illegitimate daughter. But Cosimo was a master of strategy, and he believed that Sforza's military prowess could be a valuable asset. As the night wore on, Cosimo began to charm Sforza. He treated him with respect and understanding, something Sforza had rarely experienced. For the first time in his life, Sforza felt appreciated for who he was, not just for his military skills. Cosimo's approach was subtle but effective. By the end of the night, Sforza was writing to Cosimo in his mixed Italian dialect, addressing him as magnificent and dearest almost father. The alliance was sealed, and Florence gained a powerful protector, but the road ahead was far from smooth. Milan and the Papal States were watching, and the politics of Italy were as treacherous as ever. Cosimo de Medici, however, was undeterred. He was a man who had inherited his father's driven nature, and had a deep understanding of the complex world of Italian politics. He knew that to succeed, he needed to be both cunning and generous, and he was more than willing to take the risks that came with it. The next morning, as the sun rose over Florence, Cosimo stood once again at his window, watching the city come to life. He had taken a bold step, and now he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The city of Florence, under his guidance, was about to enter a new era, one that would be marked by both conflict and creativity, and one that would eventually give birth to the Renaissance. But before that could happen, there were many more battles to be won, both on the battlefield and in the halls of power. Cosimo de Medici was just beginning his journey, and the story of his rise to greatness was only just beginning to unfold. Cosimo de Medici's library was a game changer. For the first time, people could access knowledge that didn't come from the church. This new way of learning marked the start of a shift in power, where secular and religious knowledge began to coexist. Meanwhile, Cosimo also provided manuscripts to the library at San Giorgio Maggiore, a religious place, broadening the range of knowledge available within the church. The church's grip on scholarship was loosening, but there wasn't much conflict, yet both types of knowledge were growing together. One of the most important figures in this new world of learning was Poggio Bracciolini. Born in 1380 to a poor family in Arezzo, Poggio made his way to Florence at 18, nearly penniless. He managed to get into the university, where he studied law, but also learned Greek from the newly appointed professor, Manuel Chrysoloras. After graduating in 1403, Poggio got a job as a scrivener in the papal service. When Baldassare Casa became Pope John XXIII in 1410, he promoted Poggio to a high-ranking position. Poggio's career took a significant turn when he met the young Cosimo de Medici at the Council of Constance in 1414. Poggio became a manuscript hunter, traveling across Europe to find lost ancient works. He was known for his clever and sometimes underhanded methods. He would copy manuscripts even when forbidden, bribe reluctant abbots, and hide manuscripts in his cloak. His most famous find was a complete manuscript of Lucretius's De Rerum Natura in 1417. This poem, lost since the fall of the Roman Empire, described a universe made of atoms and governed by scientific laws, challenging the role of the gods. Poggio sent the manuscript to his friend Niccolò Niccoli in Florence, where it was copied and preserved. This discovery was a huge boost for the humanist movement, encouraging people to think about the world in new ways. Poggio's appetite for ancient learning was matched by his love for good food and beautiful women. He traveled widely, even to England, though the damp climate there made many manuscripts unreadable. Back in Italy, he rejoined the papal service and continued his search for manuscripts while writing his own works. At 56, he settled down, married an 18-year-old, and had 6 more children to add to the 14 he had already fathered outside of marriage. Poggio's friendship with Cosimo de Medici was strong. They even went on a holiday to Ostia, where they explored ancient Roman ruins. When Cosimo was exiled, Poggio wrote supportive letters, though some were a bit hypocritical. Poggio also advised Cosimo on building his manuscript collection and recommended Cyriac of Ancona, a merchant and antique dealer, to help find more manuscripts. Cyriac's travels to Constantinople, the Holy Land, and Egypt were instrumental in bringing back valuable texts. Poggio's writings were popular and varied, from bawdy tales to philosophical dialogues. He was known for his polemical style, often satirizing the corruption of the church. His distinctive handwriting, modeled on clear German manuscripts, influenced early Italian printers, leading to the development of the Roman type we still use today. Another key figure in Cosimo's humanist circle was Marsilio Ficino. Born in 1433, Ficino was a small, hunchbacked man with a limping walk, but he had a deep interest in Plato. Cosimo, who was keen to read Plato, supported Ficino's translations of Plato's dialogues into Latin. They would spend evenings discussing Plato's ideas, which deeply affected Cosimo. Plato's discussions of the immortality of the soul and the ideal republic helped Cosimo cope with the moral dilemmas of his life, such as usury and political machination. Ficino's Neoplatonic ideas emphasized the immortality of the soul and the unity of reason with the divine. He saw ancient Greek philosophy as a precursor to Christian truth and sought to blend the two. His ideas about beauty, truth, and the absolute were influential among Florentine artists and writers. However, Ficino's spirituality led him to become a priest, and he sometimes struggled with more worldly aspects of humanism, even burning a copy of Lucretius's De Rerum Natura in a fit of exasperation. In 1439, just 4 years after his return from exile, Cosimo secured a major victory for Florence. The city hosted the Ecumenical Council, aimed at reconciling the Catholic Church of Rome with the Orthodox Church of Constantinople. The split between the two churches dated back to the late Roman era, and tensions were heightened by the Fourth Crusade's sacking of Constantinople in 1204. With the Ottoman threat to Constantinople, the Byzantine Emperor John VIII Palaeologus sought help from Pope Eugenius IV. The council met in Ferrara in 1438, but a plague outbreak forced a move to Florence. Cosimo offered to cover the expenses, seeing the council as a chance to boost Florence's prestige and economy. The Pope agreed, and the council moved to Florence, where it stayed for months, bringing the city immense honor and prosperity. Cosimo de Medici was a man known for his caution, but this time he decided to take a bold step. He ensured that he was elected as the Gonfaloniere, the highest office in Florence, so he could personally welcome the important delegations of the Pope and the Byzantine Emperor. The city was buzzing with excitement. Streets were adorned with flags, and the route was lined with trumpeters. Crowds filled the balconies, windows, and even rooftops, eager to witness the grand arrival. However, just as the Byzantine emperor and his large entourage entered the city, a sudden downpour and strong winds swept through. The rain was so heavy that the crowds quickly sought shelter, leaving the imperial procession to make its way through the now deserted streets. They were hurriedly led to a nearby palazzo to escape the rain, looking quite disheveled. Despite this inauspicious start, the ecumenical council began. Vespasiano, a Florentine book dealer, recorded the grand opening. On a solemn day, the Pope with all the court of Rome, the Emperor of the Greeks, and all the bishops and prelates gathered in Santa Maria del Fiore. The cathedral was beautifully arranged for the seating of the prelates from both churches. Inside the cathedral, under Brunelleschi's magnificent dome, the discussions began. The delegates debated important religious questions, like whether the bread used in Mass should be leavened or unleavened, and whether the souls of the dead had to pass through purgatory before reaching heaven or hell. The most heated debate was over the Holy Trinity. Did the Holy Ghost come from both the Father and the Son, or just the Father? But the real impact of the council was felt in the streets. Florence was a city alive with the presence of exotic visitors. People marveled at the Greek archbishops in their black robes with veils, and the brightly colored cloaks with white and purple stripes. There were also Armenians, Ethiopians, and even people from far-off lands with their exotic pets and attendants. Florentine artists were inspired by these sights, and soon monkeys, exotic birds, and even cheetahs began appearing in their painting. The Byzantine emperor's preference for scrambled eggs even influenced Florentine cooking. In the evenings, scholars and intellectuals gathered in the palazzi, where the eastern delegates stayed. Archbishop Bessarion, a famous theologian from Trebizond, hosted some of these gatherings. Gemistos Platon, a philosopher known for his deep knowledge of Plato, captivated his audience with his teachings. He spoke of Plato's theory of ideas, describing humans as prisoners in a dark cave, seeing only shadows. To find the truth, they must turn away from the shadows and face the light of reality. Cosimo, despite being a practical businessman, was deeply moved by these ideas. He commissioned Marsilio Ficino to translate Plato's works into Latin, so he could read them himself. He also began dreaming of founding a Platonic academy in Florence, where these ideas could be studied and spread. After months of debate, the council finally agreed on a formula to unite the two churches. The Pope was recognized as the head of the church, and the Byzantines accepted a compromise on the Holy Ghost. On July 6, 1439, the agreement was signed in a grand ceremony in the cathedral. The Pope and the Emperor were both present, and the two sides embraced, symbolizing the end of the 6th century schism. However, when the Byzantine Emperor returned to Constantinople, the agreement faced strong opposition. The people of Constantinople rejected it, and riots broke out. The city's fate was sealed, and in 1453 it fell to the Ottoman Turks. Many scholars and philosophers fled to Italy, bringing with them a wealth of knowledge and manuscripts. This influx of Greek learning sparked a new interest in ancient texts, and soon, studying Greek became fashionable. The term Rinascimento, Renaissance, began to be used to describe this rebirth of ancient knowledge. Cosimo de Medici, with his vast library, became a key figure in this Renaissance. His collection included over 10,000 manuscripts, covering a wide range of subjects. He also followed in his father's footsteps by commissioning public works, but on a much grander scale. The Renaissance in Florence was not just about rediscovering ancient knowledge, it was also about creating something new. Artists began to depict human figures with more realism, placing them in lifelike settings. They sought to understand and teach about the human condition, much like a science. Leonardo da Vinci, for example, used his art to explore the secrets of nature and human anatomy. Florence, with its tradition of civic patronage and a vibrant intellectual community, was the perfect place for this Renaissance to flourish. The Medici family, especially Cosimo, played a crucial role. Their patronage and support of artists and scholars helped shape the Renaissance, leaving an indelible mark on the city's cultural legacy. In the heart of Florence, a city that was beginning to pulse with a new kind of energy, the Medici family was about to play a crucial role in the birth of the Renaissance. Giovanni di Bicci, the patriarch of the Medici clan, was a shrewd banker who understood the power of art and its ability to shape the world. His first foray into the world of patronage came at a time when the city was still reeling from the recent plague. In 1401, the Florentine authorities decided to commission new bronze doors for the baptistry of San Giovanni, a place of deep spiritual significance for all Florentines. Giovanni served on the committee that chose the artist for this project, and it was a decision that would change the course of art history. The competition attracted many talented artists, but the winner was a young and unknown goldsmith named Lorenzo Ghiberti. Ghiberti was just 24 years old and illegitimate, but his design was so innovative and beautiful that it won over the judges. It took Ghiberti more than 20 years to complete the doors, a feat that required not only artistic skill, but also groundbreaking advancements in bronze casting techniques. The doors featured intricate scenes from the Bible, with figures and architectural backgrounds that were inspired by the rediscovered classical ruins of ancient Rome. These doors were so magnificent that they are now considered one of the first great works of the Renaissance. Ghiberti's success did not go unnoticed. He was soon commissioned to create another set of doors for the baptistry, a project that would take him over 30 years to complete. During this time, Ghiberti became one of the most famous and wealthy artists in Florence. His second set of doors, known as the Gates of Paradise, were so stunning that the young Michelangelo, upon seeing them, declared that they could be the gates of paradise itself. However, not everyone was happy with Ghiberti's victory. One of the artists who lost the competition was Filippo Brunelleschi, a man known for his volatile temper and pride. Brunelleschi was so humiliated by his defeat that he left Florence for Rome, where he studied the ancient ruins with the young artist Donatello. It was during this time that Brunelleschi made a groundbreaking discovery. He learned the secret of the Pantheon's dome, which had remained the largest in the world for over 1,300 years. Brunelleschi decided to become an architect, determined to prove that he could achieve what others could not. When Brunelleschi returned to Florence, he quickly established himself as one of the city's leading architects. In 1419, Giovanni di Bicci commissioned Brunelleschi to build the Ospedale degli Innocenti, a foundling hospital with a clean and classical facade. This building marked a departure from the medieval style and was a symbol of the new Renaissance spirit. Giovanni, who was initially uncertain about his role as a patron, sought advice from his son Cosimo, a young man with a deep understanding of classical learning. Cosimo's enthusiasm and knowledge helped Giovanni appreciate Brunelleschi's innovative ideas, and the two men formed a close friendship. Brunelleschi's success with the Ospedale degli Innocenti led to more commissions, including the restoration and expansion of San Lorenzo, the Medici family's church. However, Brunelleschi's most ambitious project was yet to come. The Cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, started in 1296, had been a source of pride for Florence, but it had remained unfinished for decades. The greatest challenge was the cathedral's dome, which needed to span 138 feet, wider than any dome built since the Pantheon. The city's leaders were desperate to find a solution, and in 1418 they announced a competition to design the dome. Brunelleschi entered the competition with a bold proposal, an egg-shaped dome supported by stone ribs. His design was chosen, but the committee was wary of his secrecy. When they demanded to know how he would build the dome, Brunelleschi, in a moment of brilliance, demonstrated the concept using an egg. He placed the egg on a table and cracked it open, showing that it could stand on its end. This simple yet powerful demonstration convinced the committee to award him the project, though they insisted he work with Ghiberti as a partner. Brunelleschi, who despised Ghiberti, was furious, but he eventually got his way. The construction of the dome was a monumental task. Brunelleschi used innovative techniques, including a double shell design inspired by the Pantheon, and a herringbone pattern of bricks that allowed the dome to support itself during construction. He also invented a crane and a hoist to lift the massive stones and bricks. The dome, completed in 1436, was a triumph of both art and engineering. It transformed the skyline of Florence and became a symbol of the city's rebirth. As Brunelleschi worked on the dome, Cosimo de Medici, now the head of the Medici family, began to pour money into various building projects. He commissioned new buildings, renovated old ones, and transformed medieval Florence into a Renaissance city. The architects he chose, such as Brunelleschi, Donatello, and Michelangelo, were all influenced by the classical style of ancient Rome. Cosimo's patronage was so extensive that by the time of his death in 1464, he had spent over 663,755 gold florins on these projects. This sum was enormous, especially considering that just a century earlier, the Peruzzi Bank, one of the richest in Europe, had assets worth only 103,000 gold florins. The Medici family's support for the arts and architecture was a key factor in the Renaissance's development. Through their patronage, they not only created beautiful works of art, but also helped to foster a culture of innovation and learning. In Florence, the new art and science of the Renaissance were inseparable, and the city became a shining example of what could be achieved when creativity and financial support came together. Cosimo de Medici was a man of many layers. Despite his cautious and conservative approach to banking, he had a heart that beat for the arts and for the people of Florence. His life was a blend of pragmatism and passion, of business and beauty. Cosimo's banking practices were rooted in the tried and true methods of his predecessors. He didn't invent new financial tools. Instead, he mastered the ones that were already available. This conservative approach ensured the stability and success of the Medici Bank, a foundation that allowed him to support his other ventures. He was a banker by trade, but his true legacy lies in his role as a patron of the arts and a political leader. One of the most fascinating aspects of Cosimo's life was his relationship with the artists he supported. He was known for his tolerance of their eccentricities, especially those of his favorite, Donatello. Donatello was a brilliant but volatile artist who once dramatically smashed a bronze head he had created, rather than accept a lower price. Cosimo, instead of reprimanding Donatello, saw him as a genius to be cherished. This attitude reflected a broader shift in Renaissance society, where individuality and artistic expression were increasingly valued. Cosimo's support of the arts was not just about personal pleasure. It was also a strategic move to solidify his power and influence. By commissioning grand works and building magnificent structures, he left a lasting mark on Florence. The Medici Bank may have been his business, but the city's beauty and culture were his passion. He funded the rebuilding of San Marco Monastery, a project that cost over 30,000 florins, and he even had his own cell there for meditation. This spiritual side of Cosimo is often overlooked, but it was a crucial part of his identity. Despite his wealth and success, Cosimo was haunted by the guilt of usury, which was forbidden by the church. He sought forgiveness and spent vast sums on charitable projects, not just to cleanse his soul, but also to secure his legacy. He knew that the Medici power might not last forever, but he was determined to leave a lasting impact on the city he loved. Cosimo's political acumen was evident in how he managed the city. He understood the delicate balance of power in Florence and used his wealth to maintain control. He supported the business class and kept the landowning aristocracy at bay, ensuring that the city's democratic ideals remained intact. His influence extended beyond Florence, as he funded projects in Paris and Jerusalem, enhancing the Medici name across Europe. In the end, Cosimo de Medici was a man who lived a life of contradictions. He was a cautious banker who spent lavishly on art, a devout Christian who grappled with the sins of his wealth, and a shrewd politician who sought to leave a lasting legacy. His story is a testament to the complex nature of human ambition and the enduring impact of one man's vision on a city and a culture.